We're going to do something a little bit different today. Stay tuned. All right. Good morning. Let's see. Let's get rid of this. All right. Good morning, everyone. I hope all is well. It's Monday, December. Oh, I don't have my calendar up here. Hold on. Monday, December 4th. And we are. I got a couple of trucks dispatched this week. So there's that. Let's see here. Let's change a few things here and then we'll get rolling. I want to do something a little bit different. Normally I've been going over the 123 low board and I want to tell you guys a story instead. So those of you who complain about the boring load board stuff, this live feed is for you. So let's make a few adjustments here. Subscribers, we'll do 10 minutes. You got to watch me for 10 minutes as a subscriber if you want to make a comment. So anyways, we'll get the 123 low board up here. So good morning. I hope all is well in your world. Hope you had a good weekend. Hope you stayed warm. Hope you had some profit. Or you were, as a company driver, you made some miles, or you had some decent home time. You know, this is the season where it's tough to run for the full 25, 30 days for the month because of holidays, because of weather, because of family obligations, and something that a lot of people don't take into consideration when they're running their cost per day. You know, we can, you know, and Jeff has been talking about cost per day for a long time, ever since I've known him. And so that's where today's video is going to talk about. So we'll get into the comments. I want to explain to you about how I almost left like trucking. I'm gonna tell that story, and I probably got Jeff's attention now, because I'm seeing some mistakes that a lot of people are making, and I want to tell you from experience, not because I know better than you, not because I know more than you, not because I'm sitting here all cush in my dining room here doing this live feed. I'm telling you from past experience and from the experience of watching so many owner operators struggle throughout the years, not just this year. You think this is the only down market we've been through? No. And so I want to get to that. And so pay it, so and you can hate me after this, but it's only because I tell the truth. And it's only because I'm seeing people go out of business simply because they're not implementing what needs to happen. Okay? And so it's a mindset thing, but it's also a little bit more than that. So anyways, we've made our adjustments. Weather-wise, I think if you're up in the New England area, you're seeing some pretty bad weather. Not sure what the West Coast is doing. Let's take a look at that real quick. See what warnings are out there. So let's put this on the screen, and then we'll talk about if you're in Maine trying to hang out with Sage up there, then you're probably looking at some weather. But there's also some stuff going on up here. Looks like you got some flood watches and some high. That's not right. Is that winter weather? Winter weather advisories going on. So nothing too major yet. Some wind out here, and so. But anyways, we're going to be looking at some high temps later this week. So that's going to be kind of nice here in Missouri. So, anyways, let's do some shout outs, and then we'll get to talking here. My name is Nobody. Good morning. Randy, what's up? Good morning from Wildwood, Florida. Tennessee Trucking, good morning. Gen Z, what's up? Jeffrey likes in the house. Start over. Nice Christmas tree that you posted on Facebook there, sir. Just stopping in to say good morning, and it's coffee time. Shadow Wolf, good to see you, my friend. Hope retirement is serving you well. Desert Okie Pan, good morning. Story time. It is story time. Mrs. A says, Shadow Wolf, good to see you. Pigtail, good morning. You're going to like this today. Rockin' Robin, what's up? Hope you're doing better. Hope you're recovering. T-Bone, what's up? Good morning. Mrs. A and Jeff Truckers Education Network says Shadow Wolf. Russell Freight Services, LLC, good morning. Something different. You say, what's up, my friend? I found some steps from my trailer. Yeah, so I bought these steps for my trailer, and they wouldn't fit because I failed to read the directions that said it fits on a 4-inch bar, not a 5-inch bar, not recognizing that I have a 5-inch bar. And so Don mentioned he was interested in it, so we went down to the truck stop when he came through town, and he's got a set of steps. Make sure they're tight. You don't want that falling down somewhere. So hopefully it'll serve you well. Let me know how that works. TJ, what's up? Good morning. Quick hit. Good morning, Steve, says CDM Freight Broker. Now, I'm going to go back to TJ here because his beard game is strong. I was kind of giving him some crap on Jeff's channel last night, talking about anybody who complains about the itchy skin on the beard is weak. Now, that's part of having a beard. It was a joke because beard oil is key. So I'm hoping for a beard oil endorsement. So we'll see. Quick hit. Good morning. CDM Freight Broker. Good morning. Draco. Good morning. Draco. How's it going? All right. So here's what I want to show you. Okay. So let's go into story time here. So I struggled at Landstar, and I did a whole video on that. The video's got quite a bit of traction. You put Landstar in the title of your video, it gets a lot of traction. There's a lot of interest in Landstar. All right, so I had several problems going on. In short, I was stuck on the rate per mile. And I think that a part of that was the people that I was hanging out with. I don't look at anything below $2 a mile. Was constantly said in my head by several people I was hanging out with. Now, the problem with that, now, if my costs were $2 a mile, I could see not wanting to go there. But the problem with that mindset is, what if everything becomes less than $2 a mile? What do you do? And those of you who have seen the old pictures of me know that I ballooned up to close to 400 pounds. And part of that was sitting at truck stops, stressing out over low board freight. And anybody who's done a minute at Landstar knows that the generic dry van low board for the newbies is not, there's it's a challenge, especially with the pajama agents that all they do is pick loads off the other low boards. All right, so I sat a lot. I would put myself in situations like, I don't know, landing in Oklahoma City on a Friday, not be able to find anything. Why? Because I did not look anything under $2 a mile. That and that voice is because that was what was echoing. Don't look at anything under $2 a mile is the other voice. You're better than that. Know your worth, right? I sat and did several resets in Oklahoma City. I didn't have enough sense to just go home. I didn't have enough sense to not land in Oklahoma City on a Friday. I didn't have enough sense to, just move the truck. And that was the key. Now, at that time, I started keeping track of my rate per mile, not my rate per day, but my rate per mile. And I found myself realizing that, I wasn't making what I thought I was making. Why? Because, Landstar's taking 35%. So I meet Jeffrey Light. He reaches out to me via YouTube, says, "Hey, Snorelord, I see you're struggling over there. Give me a call." And I ignored him. I thought, man, this dude's just a recruiter. I don't want to go to Schneider. I don't know what he's talking about. Then finally, a fellow Landstar friend calls me and goes, "Dude, I'm going on this choice board." I'm like, "What's the choice board?" He goes, "It's you choose your own freight, but you don't even talk to agents. You click and go." I'm like, "Well, that sounds intriguing." And it's all drop and hook, man. It's awesome. So he became my big guinea pig. That was Big Rob. And he goes, "Dude, you really need to reach out to Jeffrey Like, man. I have his number. He really wants to talk to you. He spent 10 years at Landstar." So I call him up and he gives me the 3-hour version of a video that's probably one of his most popular videos, Landstar versus Schneider. He gave me the 3-hour version. We became good. We became friends because he was able to talk me off of ledges. He was able to give me a different perspective. And the perspective was rate per day. And so one thing led to another. I'm at Schneider doing the choice board, and I keeping track of my numbers. And what I noticed was that my rate per mile was not much different. My rate per loaded mile and rate per all mile was not much different. What was different was my rate per day. Next thing you know, I'm not struggling anymore. The learning curve over at Schneider was pretty easy because I was already used to self-dispatch. And other than your normal issues of, shipper, receiver, pickup numbers and trailer issues, it was awesome. I loved it. So did that for 2 years, was able to pay off, well, was able to trade in the first truck for the second truck, and then, which is the one behind me there. and started making some serious coin. But then Schneider went public and a lot of changes started happening. And Jeffrey Like just went and said, you know what, I'm going to do this for myself, get my own authority. And I was invited to be one of the first ones after so much time. And I thought, man, and at that time, so here's the thing. This was in 2017. And a lot of these YouTubers were going over to Traveloka and talk about how much money they were making, how good the rates were, and they were recruiting pretty heavily for Traveloka. Meanwhile, Jeff had his own authority and was giving me numbers. And they were way better than the Schneider numbers at that time, okay? At that time. So, doing the math, I went and bought a trailer. And I remember it was back when Big Rig CEO and I were still talking. He goes, man, you have a lot of gonads to make a $30,000 investment and to sign on with Like Trucking. And I was like, why? It's just another carrier. I said, but that's a huge investment. Yeah, but trailers depreciate less and they retain their value a bit longer, and there's not much maintenance to them. And it'd be kind of nice to be underneath the same trailer for a while. And went to work. Now, within the first month of being at Like Trucking, being in the spot market, I bust my ankle. And so guess what? I couldn't run for a while. And after that, I started falling into some of the same habits that I did at Landstar. I was now concentrating back to rate per mile. But man, I can run less and make about the same I'm making at Schneider, which was great for me, but not great for Like Trucking. Why? Because when a carrier first starts, the first 5 to 10 drivers have to be runners in order for the carrier to survive. Because you've got insurance, you've got ELDs, you've got all these different things that cost money. And so it's important for your first 5 to 10 people to be making decent revenue for the carrier to make profit. And I was not doing that because I was running less and less. And as 2018 turned into 2019, the rates started going down. And I started falling into bad habits. Finally, one day, Jeff has a conversation with me, and I almost quit. Because I didn't want to be told how to run my business, which isn't what Jeff was doing. He was doing like hey, I'm kind of worried about you because you're not running enough to make, yeah, you're paying your bills, but what about equipment replacement? What about repairs? And I know that you've fallen into that trap before. And I was like, you know what? He's right. So as rates were dropping, I started concentrating on rate per day. But as rates were dropping, I was making more money than I had before. Why? Because I was always moving. And that's the whole point of the story. I've been guilty of being stuck on rate per mile. I've been guilty of not running hard enough. I've been guilty about limiting my scope when I look at a low board. And so when I run into a driver that has the same issues, I get it. And so if someone wants me to dispatch them that, well, okay, I won't go here and won't go here and won't go here and won't go here. Okay. I can try to make that work, but more than likely we're going to have to expand our boundaries if the market's dropping. If the market's great, man, when the rates were at their highest, I was making $1,000 a day, and I was running just Missouri and Arkansas. That's it. It was great. It was fantastic. While everybody else was chasing that $10,000 West Coast stuff, I was making my money here. And and so knowing the challenges that I have at home, that I wanted to, I the balance of home and work life is extremely important to me, because not having that balance has turned me almost to an alcoholic. Back when I was a welder, I was working 10, 12-hour days, 6 days a week. The kids were real little, and it was a very hard time. And I recognized I was my intention on my social drinking was getting worse. So when it came to trucking, I remember when I was a kid with my dad, how it kind of sucked not having my dad around. And so I wanted to make sure that I always had a decent work home balance, because that's important. Because what good is owning a truck? What good is owning a business if you can't enjoy the fruits of the labor? What good is any of that stuff if your family goes away, if you get divorced? What good's that shiny Peterbilt outside if you got no one, if you got nobody? And so that was important to me. Okay. So the company I went to as a company driver got me home every other weekend, but I wasn't like anal about it. I was like, I was, for the most part, I said, look, I'll run as hard as you need me to. Just get me home when I ask, because, I had the band. And so if I had to work 3 weekends in a row, that was fine, because I was going to need 4 days off for my show that we were doing. And so that was the balance that I had with my dispatchers. So I learned to get along with my dispatchers. But back to running. See, there's a reason why most lease purchases are weekly payments, because they want you to keep running. They don't want you to make all your money in the first 2 weeks and then take the rest of the 2 weeks off. That's not like, we'll use Schneider. We'll use Prime. No, we'll use Schneider as an example. Schneider, Prime, doesn't matter. If they gave you a monthly payment, number one, it would seem overwhelming, because it would be like $4,000 or $5,000. Number two, if you did the math and realized that you can make that money in 2 weeks, then you might work for 2 weeks and then want to take 2 weeks off. Well, if you're Schneider or Prime, you have your own in-house freight. That doesn't work for you. These contract freight that everybody is out there seeking, you don't get a break. These loads have to move. If you have 10 loads out of, say, Procter & Gamble that need to move, Procter & Gamble just sees we have 10 loads that need to be moved. We don't care if the driver's on vacation. We don't care if the driver's wife is sick. We don't care if the driver's truck is down. We need 10 loads moved. And so as an incentive, they give you a weekly payment, because they want you, number one, they want to break it down. But number two, it keeps you moving, because they know that that's the main way how freight is moved. My truck payment was only $1,585 a month, and my trailer payment was only $600 something a month. I can make that money, right? But when Jeff lit a fire and said, "Hey, dude, here's the importance of you running for both you and me," I kicked it into gear. And as everybody was complaining about the rates, I was making more money than I'd ever had in the spot market. Why? Because I was always moving. Now, I still had a limited area that I was running. There might have been one load I did up to Pennsylvania, but for the most part, I never went west of I-35. Every now and then I'd flirt with Florida, but nothing south of Orlando. And I was primarily running these states here. Where you see the green. I was primarily running from, I was doing Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, a little bit of Michigan, a little bit of Wisconsin. I went into PA once, Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia. And I would find just steady lanes. Like there's steady loads that went from Joplin to South Georgia. There are loads that go from Springfield, Joplin to Columbus, Ohio. For a while, I was running this perfect run from Springfield to just north of Cincinnati. And, Harold Huffman, who used to have a YouTube channel, he said, Steve, you ought to go on instead of home every weekend, you should do every other weekend because the rates are lower and a 10-day cycle works. And he kind of explained how the 10-day cycle works. And that's what I did. And a lot of times when I went home for the weekend, I was under load. So I was still making money. Do my 10-hour or 20-hour break at home, deliver the load Monday morning, good to go. Why? Because I live in a good freight area. I was blessed with that. And so watching people the ones that are making it, the ones that are complaining, and the ones that don't have a prayer's chance is interesting to me. And they all have the same thing in common. Shannon Thomas, okay? She has the highest revenue for our company right now because she always is keep moving. Sometimes it's a little, sometimes she gets herself in situations where I have to like, Shannon, what are you doing? But she's always thinking about moving, always thinking about moving. That's how she rolls. But then I see other drivers sitting at truck stops 3, 4, 5, 6 days in good freight areas, and they can't run because they're stuck on the rate per mile. And I know that because I see it because I lived it. So, Don, WCF Invader, he is, and I'll get to the comments here after I'm done with this spiel here. He has a very limited running area. But you know what? He's always moving. He's always thinking. He's always looking at the low board. Always. And then he collaborates with me. I help him book a few loads, and he's good to go. Greg Zimmer, who's shown up in the chat, he was literally the best person to dispatch. Why? Because he always wanted to move. He understood the rate per day. He was a light trucking contractor at one time, and he understood what it takes to make money. And I'll give you a perfect example. There was an outside carrier that wanted me to dispatch them. So this guy was an old school driver. He interviews me, which is fine. And he goes, so and so talks good about you. So and so talks good about you. You sound like you know what you're talking about. So I want you to dispatch me. All right. So you got complete faith in me. He goes, yes. Okay. So he's ready to leave Friday morning. And he goes, I have one caveat though. Like, what's that? He goes, I need to help you book your first load out of the house. And he lived in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm like, and it's a reefer. I'm like, okay, that's fine. And so when loads are flying off the shelf as fast as they're being posted, that becomes a problem. And so and so I'm like, all right, well, I get it. It's our first dispatch. He doesn't trust me 100%. I get it. Look at me. Would you trust me? Pfft, okay, so I get it, right? And he goes, the first load out of the house has got to be the best paying load. It's got to be the biggest revenue of the week because of how his carrier paid. And the problem with that is that at that time, Salt Lake City was tough to get out. And so your best bet, just like Denver, your best bet was to get a shorty to a better freight area and then make your money from there. And I told them that. I said, look, here's the load, paying $3,000, go from Salt Lake to Indianapolis, which at that time, Indianapolis was a banging place to get a reefer out of. Okay. And you'll be there Monday morning. And then from there, we can make our money. No, don't want to do that. Why not? Well, because that's only $3,000. I said, dude, it's like $1,000 a day. Yeah, but that's only $3,000. But you'll be landing somewhere Monday morning. That's a great freight area. We can go wherever you want. Nope, that's not good enough. Meanwhile, loads are flying off the shelf, and I'm like, okay. So now I'm having to call him every time I need to book a load because he wouldn't put his faith in me. So finally, he decided on this load that I wasn't really, like, I wouldn't have booked it myself. It was a load going from Salt Lake City to New Jersey, or no, to Jessup, Maryland. Sorry, Jessup, Maryland. And I forget what it was paying. It was like 5,600 or something like that. But it didn't pick up till Sunday and delivered Wednesday. I'm like, you sure you want this? Yes. Are you sure? Yes. So I booked it. Friday afternoon, he calls me and goes, hey, man, we got to call the broker and get another $300. I'm like, no, that's not how this works. Why do you say that? And he's like, well, because they have the mileage wrong. I said, what do you mean they have the mileage wrong? So I Googled it. The broker's mileage on the Raycon was literally 6 miles less than what Google said for a truck. And I looked at the routes. He goes, well, how's Google got it going? I said, 80 all the way across. He goes, well, there's a lot of tolls on that. I'm like, I know, but that's the load you wanted. I wouldn't have booked that. I was trying to book you a load that got you 3,000, literally more than half by Monday morning. Well, we need to give this load back because my mileage was 200 miles more. And then he goes, well, it also picks up Wednesday evening or it delivers Wednesday early morning or something. I can't make that unless I drive evenings. I'm like, I know. That's why I asked you if you wanted this load. I wouldn't have booked that. Well, we got to give this load back. So I called the carrier, said, hey, man, your guy's on your own. I'm having to give a load back. You need to deal with that. And then, this is after hours of this dude telling me how high his expenses were because he got this expensive truck and he got this expensive reefer trailer. Like he just couldn't get it through his head. And so I call the broker and say, hey, my driver's refusing to do this load. I apologize. Have a nice day. And so now the carrier's mad, not at me. Carrier's mad. This guy hasn't even ran a load for this carrier yet. And I go, so later on, the carrier calls me and goes, hey, you're right. This is a challenge. I said, well, what'd you guys end up getting? Well, we got a load that doesn't pick up till Monday night and delivers Friday in New Jersey. Oh, and the deadhead was like 400 miles away. And so that guy calls me, goes, hey, man, I apologize. I want you to dispatch me. I said, no, I'm not dispatching you because of the decisions that you made that you wouldn't allow me to do what I'm paid to do. You're not even going to have a paycheck this week because the load I had would have had you $3,000 by Monday. And then from then we could have, if you were really heart set on the Northeast, we could have gone the Northeast for about, for another $4,000. And you'd be at $7,000 by Friday instead of $6,000 by Sunday, the following Sunday. Because he was stuck on rate per mile, and he was stuck on not recognizing that tolls cost money. He was stuck on he just couldn't get out of my way. He couldn't get out of his own way. I believe that guy's no longer in business, by the way. You see, the majority of the people that I know that are struggling, it's their own fault. And so I make people mad because I was mad when Jeff said, hey, dude, you got to kind of kick it into gear. I was mad. My ego was like, oh, screw you, Jeff. Raw. And I did. I almost left like trucking over that. Here's the deal. We have two drivers here that are broken down and they can't afford their repairs. And when you look at their gross and net revenue, there's no way that they could pay for their repairs, but they both have something in common. They sit at truck stops way too long, stuck on rate per mile. That was me. Luckily, I had a good truck. I mean, I did have a turbo replacement on the Peterbilt that I had. And so these maps that we show you, these maps on these low boards, all the maps and charts that you see on Sonar, and there's some free resources to get the Sonar maps. None of these maps do you any good sitting at a truck stop waiting for that perfect home run load every single time. And the problem is that rates were so good last year, so good, that everybody's spoiled. Everybody feels entitled. When the rates were sky high, everybody was like, we're finally getting what we deserve. We're finally getting what we're worth. The freight market doesn't care about your worth. The brokers and the shippers don't care about your truck payment. They don't care about your fuel. They don't care about whether you're willing to go into certain areas or not. They don't care about your anxiety of not being able to book anything. Freight needs to be moved. You have a truck. That's your job. Now, luckily, hopefully you're in a situation like trucking where you have control. over where you go, what you want to do, and as long as your expenses are fairly low, you can pretty much do what you want to do. But that's also a detriment to some drivers. They can't handle all the freedom because they have nobody to tell them what to do. Jeff mentioned it last night. Hey, we're not here to make your repairs for you. You're here as a business partner, and you have to pull your weight. And so Jeff and I try to give people advice. We try to give them at least a different perspective. Whether you're long haul, short haul, whether you run the Northeast or the Northwest, whether you run the Southeast or Southwest, cost per day, rate per day, revenue per day. I mean, yeah, you want to pay attention to some of the miles. Like, you don't want to do like 3,000 miles a week at $1 a mile. But at the same time, you have to figure out if you only need $600 a day, well, is it easier to do that in the short game, or is it easier to do that in the long game? Do you hate booking loads? Do you hate talking to brokers? Then why are you in the spot market? Either get out of it or use someone like me. I don't mind talking to brokers. I mind talking to some brokers, but for the most part, I enjoy the hunt. But over the years, this is the third down market I've experienced, and I see the same things take people out. The same things, and not running is the number one. I'm not saying you got to run 3,500 miles a week and hope for the best. No, it's literally just keep moving. I'll give you another scenario. There was a driver I was talking to that called me up. Hey man, I'm landing in Oklahoma City on Saturday. I don't know what to do. I'm like, okay, well, number one, you're gonna take a lower rate coming out of Oklahoma City. Number two, options are going to be limited because it's a Saturday. So we're going to look at a 200-mile race for Saturday and Sunday. See, immediately my mind starts working. And my mind first goes to, let's get this truck out of Oklahoma City. So I see one load that goes up to Wisconsin. The 30-day on that was $1,600. I haven't been able to get the 30-day on anything, hardly at all, unless it was going to a bad area, which Wisconsin is not. But you know what? I have a starting point. So I told him, you need to call this broker on this load. And he ended up calling on it, but he goes, oh, they had it covered for 14. I ain't doing that. Okay. So I go to look at, he told me what he bid on another load that was going up to Wisconsin. He was asking for literally $1,000 more than the 30-day average. And it was a load that picked up in Kansas, 200 miles away on Sunday. I was looking at Kansas. I was looking at Joplin. Because I know that they both have shippers that leave out on Saturdays and Sundays. But because of time, we're probably looking for Sunday. So we're going to lose Saturday, but at least we can like rescue this for Sunday. So I call him up and said, dude, that bid, that ain't going to work, man. They're just going to laugh at you. Ain't nobody getting, I think it was like a ridiculous amount per mile coming out of Oklahoma City. Going to a much better area, Wisconsin. Man, if I can get $2,000 to go up to Wisconsin from Oklahoma City. I go to Oklahoma City all the time, but that's not how it works. So I put in a realistic bid for him, and I said they're probably going to let it go for 11. They were at like 985 or 1,000, something like that. Meanwhile, 30-day was about 1150. I said it's a Sunday pickup. They'll probably let it go for 11. So I put a bid in at 1,300. They countered at 1158 or something stupid like that. No, I ain't doing that. Okay. I withdrew the bid, put my phone down, went on to enjoy hanging out with my family. That person sat there for 3 days. When had he just done what I've told him and tried to help him with, he'd be sitting in Wisconsin just in time for Thanksgiving at $600 a day. Or $550, I guess. That person is now sitting at a truck stop with a major breakdown that he can't afford to pay. Do you see the pattern here? If you want to run the spot market, the market is tough. If you want to be home every other day, or if you want to be home every weekend, I get that. Okay. Depending on where you live, that could be possible, but you are literally at the 100% mercy of the market. And if you don't learn to understand it, if you don't learn to live on the low boards and figure out what's the best strategy for you and to keep the truck moving, you're not going to make it. Because January and February are right around the corner, and they're already moving some spring freight right now. All the spikes that we have seen, they want to eliminate those. The interview with the CEO of Shaw, the carpet manufacturer, is he's saying that he is not the only shipper that wants to bring things down and a more 10% more than what we're dealing with now. And so when the market gets tough, you have to keep moving, just like I did. I made more money than a good market. Why? Because I kept moving. And as long as it wasn't ridiculous, then I was able to pay for fuel. I was able to pay for maintenance. I was able to pay for repairs. All I had to do was just kind of step up my game a little bit, work a little bit smarter, but also work a little bit harder. I saw a quote today. Strength isn't found by simply hoping our circumstances will change. I say strength for today, hope for tomorrow. But the hope is not, oh man, I hope these rates pick up so I can be better. No, you have to make it better. That hope is that strength has to come from within, has to be almost a spiritual sense. So you know what? This kind of sucks. So what can I do about it? Not just sit there and think that the rates are going to change next week to like all of a sudden we're being blessed with something. Christmas freight is just about done. There was an uptick in volumes last 2 weeks. And you know what? Nobody was running. Let me show you something here. Paying attention to charts and graphs, is important, okay? And I don't care if you're at Landstar, Schneider, Mercer, Like Trucking. Van spot rates went up 2.2%. Is that enough to save your business? Is that enough for your hope sitting at a truck stop that things are going to be better next week? Is that going to? No, that's not enough, right? Van load to truck ratio is still down 20%. Reefer load the truck is down 45%. Hey, but there was an uptick of 0.2% last month. But it's still down 40% for the year. But it went down 45% for the week. You have to figure this out. Yeah, the fuel went down. That's giving you a little bit more relief. But 2%, is that enough to rescue your business? Is that enough to rescue your operation? If you have to go cheap, go light. Save on fuel. That's what I did when during the COVID shutdowns and everything was $1.10 a mile. I was like, you know what? I'm going to make my rate per day running local. And I did. I made it work. You know why? And I didn't burn hardly any fuel. I'll give you a perfect example. There was these loads that were coming out of Rolla, Missouri, going to Rogers, Arkansas. It was a small, itty bitty, real tiny grocery distributor. It was a load of charcoal. Called in on Friday, picked it up on Monday, which was nice because Sunday night I left out, spent the night at the shipper because they got this huge lot. And I forget what I got it for. And this is when you couldn't find anything. It was bad. It was probably the lowest I'd seen the market ever, even more than this. And so what did I do? Monday morning, I called, say, hey, I've got the load picked up. And she's like, okay. You got any other trucks in the area? I said, why? She's like, well, I've got one for Wednesday and one for Friday. I said, yeah, put them on my truck. Really? Yeah. Now I knew what I was doing for the entire week. My rate per day is where it needed to be. And my fuel mileage was great on half the week. Why? Because I was going back empty. It was only like 300 miles, I think, 600 miles round trip. And it was perfect because why? Because I could spend the night at the shipper. So as long as I could deliver. So basically I picked it up Monday, delivered Tuesday morning, and then picked up Wednesday morning, delivered Thursday, picked up Friday morning, and then went home and delivered the next one on Monday. I was moving. I kept moving. And the rate per mile sucked. But the rate per day wasn't too bad. Why did the rate per mile suck? Because I was deadheading half the trip. So the round trip, this wasn't round trip pay, mind you, but it was something. Meanwhile, there were people like, well, I ain't running for, $1.60 a mile. But yet they weren't counting their deadhead. You guys remember there were drivers that were going from St. Louis to Salt Lake City, Utah, saying that they wouldn't run for $1.75, but then they were deadheading all the way back to St. Louis. You were running for $1.75. So that's how I look at things. But I'm looking at the rate per day. And that St. Louis to Salt Lake, it made sense rate per day, which is why it was all right. Especially if you can find a backhaul. But like Rolla, Missouri to Rogers, Arkansas, I could do the same thing. That's how my mind works, though. I saw a scenario. Now when rates crashed during 2020, I stayed at home 10 days. And I realized there was something bugging me. Man, I got to start rolling. I got to start running. Whether I was making a profit or not, you make zero money if you don't roll. That's the thing. Try this for an analogy. So if you're sitting at a truck stop waiting for that perfect rate per mile, you got no money coming in. So if you're thirsty, you turn on the water, it's not coming in. And you got another pipe literally just gushing out, leaking expenses, right? And so if you roll, that's how you shut that water off. Now, if you're profiting, you are able to shut that water off and then shut the other pipe on, turn the other pipe on and start drinking. But sometimes you have to go without the drink, and you could shut the other valve off almost to a trickle, but that trickle is better than the flood that's happening by sitting. Just like the same scenario, if you go to Denver for $3 a mile out of Missouri, and you get your $1.50 coming out, well, that $3 a mile should sustain you to help you with that $1.50. But at the end of the month, at the end of the week, that's the revenue you need to pay attention to. But if you do that one load for $3 a mile into Denver and then sit for 4 days and then still get your $1.50 out, how does that make sense? And that's what I see so many people doing. And I get it because I used to do the same thing. Keep moving. And I know a couple of people right now that are getting about $12.50 a day in van, even though the rate per mile is kind of their rate per day is killer, and it's round trip. So because your costs are going up, food is going up, your repairs are going up, tolls are going up. Eventually, fuel will start going up. Now, I have a small prediction that fuel will probably stay steady, if not go down even further. Why? Because it's an election year. They want people to feel good about whatever's going on. I've seen that strategy before. But either way, it's going to be fuel prices are going to be used as leverage for political gain or loss. So just keep that in mind that it's going to be manipulated. Whether that's in your favor or not remains to be seen. So you have to just plan on the worst and work on the best. It's that simple. Keep moving. Keep swimming. Within reason. The mega carriers know that. The people that I know that are successful in the spot market know that. I see it in the analytics with our own carrier. The drivers that keep moving make the most money. Shannon is a perfect example of that. And here's the thing: when you're figuring up your daily costs, just eliminate December, especially if you're a family person. See, so because December is filled with a lot of with holidays. You've got New Year's Eve, you got Christmas, you have if you have multiple family events to go to, it's tough to run a full 25, 30 days of Christmas. So just kind of keep that in mind. Must be 8 o'clock. My phone's going nuts with YouTube. So just if you need help with that, I'm here to help. Look at the market. Look at these maps. And if you can't afford a low board, then you need to hire someone like me. But I guarantee you that the amount of money that you spend on any low board will be worth it. This is where the most of the population of the country is. So it's going to have the most amount of freight. Recognizing the fact that your rates out of New Jersey are going to be lower than the rate coming out of Wisconsin. Recognize the fact that anything south of I-10 in Florida, you're going to take a hit on. Freightways just did a report about how the Savannah ports are now struggling a little bit. Why? Because everything went back to the West Coast. California is the new Florida. And there's no end in sight for this freight cycle that we're in. That's the thing. So if you're hoping that things will be better in January, February, you are wrong. You have to make them better for yourself. You have to make the adjustments. You have to get out of your own way. I'm not saying you got to go to Montana and you have to go to Laredo and then you have to go to Orlando or Miami. I'm not saying you have to go into Maine. I'm not saying you have to go to Portland, Oregon. I'm saying find a lane and stick with it, but always keep moving. If you only want to run from, say, Kansas City to Columbus, Ohio, and back, then then know that, number one, that you're at the mercy of the market, but number two, as long as you keep moving, you'll be fine. Because most freight is not the same number back and forth. You're going to get a different rate from Kansas City to Columbus, and then Columbus back to Kansas City, it's going to be a different rate. Just like, if you go let's say you want to do Kansas City to Denver and back because you like self-abuse. All right, so Kansas City to Denver, you're getting good money. And then from Denver back to Kansas City, it's a bit of a challenge. Most of the time, you're going to pick up in Hutchinson, and then, you're looking at a 300 to 600 mile deadhead, or you're going to pick $130, come out. So what's the lesser of two evils? And if you're not making enough to pay the truck, then it's time to make a decision. There's not much I can say after that. Rates dropped. I parked my truck. And allow me to concentrate on the safety management, and then to help build the dispatch. And I enjoy doing that. And things happening at home, I wanted to be home for. And so it was a perfect match. The most unfortunate thing is the truck sat for too long, and that hurt the truck. So those of you saying, hey, park the truck and be company for a while, that's great, but what damage are you doing to your truck to do that? So that's something you have to keep in mind. I'm not saying it's a bad or good strategy. I'm just saying that's something that you have to pay attention to. All right, let's go to the comments here. Let's see how many people I annoyed. And we are way behind on probably an hour's worth of comments. So, um, Robin is doing well. Found a good small carrier based here in Lubbock, running Conestoga and no tarp flatbed, home every weekend, lots of weeknights. Good deal. See, and the mindset in Alberta is rate per hour on the rounder. If you can't beat the man, be the man, right? Miss Charles, good morning. If you have two short hauls, that is below your rate per day, aren't you so far behind that you just take the loss and try to get better rates or driver empty to a better market? One of the issues with short haul is if you have a high rate per day, sometimes you're going to struggle to get that rate per day out of bad areas. However, you don't make any rate per day if you don't move, and then your rate per day doubles. So if your let's say your rate per day is 500 a day for 20 days a month, but then you sit for 10 days. Now that's $1,000 you need a day that you need. And, depending on what time of the month it is, you may not be able to make that back. Sitting costs you money. It costs you time. The only advantage to sitting is you get a nice 34-hour reset. Well, what good's having a full 70-hour clock if you don't utilize it? I'm not saying you got to run out your clock. I did very few restarts on the road, under like trucking. Meanwhile, I got people that call me and say, Steve, man, I've been doing 35, 33, 35 miles a week doing this contract thing. I can't stay I'm not getting any rest. So the freight's out there. And coincidentally, a lot of these contract carriers that have that stuff, they have weekly payments, high weekly payments that you have to pay for. I remember those days, and to this day, I wonder if I should have jumped over to Jeff. I will never know what would have been. Jose, good morning. Well, I'm taking a load for $2 a mile out of Tampa. That's good. The Shawnee, Kansas, and kicking myself. It's my second load out of Florida for the year. Wow, $2 a mile. That's good. Snorelord, I didn't say my skin itched with beard growth. I mentioned beard bears all the key. Beard oil is the key to people who whine it's itchy condition with good beard. Both, yeah. Okay. Sorry. I do like having the same trailer allow me to get significantly more MPG than I would have been able to get with the drop and hook game. There are advantages and disadvantages to both. Looking outside the box. So one time I picked up a load of Coca-Cola going from Lenexa to Springfield on Friday, didn't deliver till Monday morning, but I wanted to work. I wanted to work over the weekend. How can I do that? So I contacted the carrier that I used to be a company driver for because I know that they allow power only. And I called them up and said, hey, do you have something that would cover me for the weekend? And they're like, yeah. So I literally picked up a load from their yard on Saturday morning, took it to Arkansas, delivered it Sunday morning, picked up another load Sunday morning that dropped off at the yard in Springfield. I was able to drop that and then pick up my load for Monday morning and deliver it. And that was a pretty good rate per day, and I was able to fill the weekend. It was short, easy runs too, runs that I had done before. I delivered in Sam's and Searcy, and then I picked up in Morrilton Paper, which that sucks, but I did it. Then they forgot who they were talking. They're like, "Hey, do you want to deliver this in Wisconsin?" I'm like, "No, I've got a load of yours. I got to deliver Monday in my own trailer." Like, "Oh yeah," so and I was able to sleep on their yard, easy breezy. I thought outside the box. That there's a video on that, the power only game. The power only experiment is what the video is called, and it worked out well. In my current situation, I can definitely agree it's not easy to balance family and fortune. All the economist channels are predicting a huge slowdown in trucking, worse than usual until tax time. I believe that. Thoughts on Ibanez guitars? I like them. In fact, I own. Well, my wife, she has an Ibanez bass, but I like their basses. Rate per day is fine for consistent available freight that pays you your daily rate. If you run seasonal freight, how do you manage that? Reefer rates or roller coaster? Um, you look at your cost per day, and that's why some people do their cost per day at 30 days a month. I don't do that, and you have to account for the weeks of the year that you're not going to run. I know where you're going, CDN, and taking family breaks and all that. And that's what I try to tell people. You're going to have a breakdown. You're going to have a family event that you have to go to. You're going to have a death in the family. You're going to have an injury, or you're going to have an injury for yourself. And so you can't do 30 days a month. So worst case scenario, you do 20 days a month. If that seems high, then your costs are probably a bit too high. 20 days a month is home every weekend. 25 days a month is home every other weekend. But then if you run a month straight, well, that allows you to put some days in the bank. And so if you do your cost, estimate your cost at 20 days a month, then you should always be covered. So if you want to run harder 1 month and get 30 days of that same revenue, then you're in the bank for the other stuff. Seasonal is another aspect. February and August seem to be bad months in trucking. That's when you decide to take your vacations. That's when you do the extended maintenance that you've been putting off. That's when you decide, you know what, we're going to take the family out. And that's what you have to look at. The rate per day still works, regardless if you're running hard or not. Just 20% means nothing if you guys are sitting, right? Net revenue after all deductions. Talk about Shannon. Ever watched the chick Trucking Made Successful? She charged the authorities shutting down and starting up on a monthly basis. Yes, I do watch her. I haven't watched her lately, but she's one of the free resources that if you don't want to pay for sonar, which I don't blame you, she definitely covers a lot of the stuff. She's taking that expense for you, but she's also selling a course too. So she's got something to gain by you watching her. Sorry to say, but shippers and brokers do not think rate per day. That's true. I said that earlier. They don't care about any of this. They want the load moved for a certain amount of time in a certain amount of time. So when you see a load on the load board that's like 300 miles but has 6-day transit time, that's the shipper doing that. And that load won't work depending on what you're doing. But a drop and hook carrier could cover that. It takes money and equipment to get into direct shippers. Being able to drop trailers is a huge advantage that JB Hunt, Schneider, and Swift and all them have over you. Greg knows how to run a truck and understands the business. Yep. Shannon's making because she's eyes wide open, eager to learn. The ones that aren't making have the grumpy old trucker syndrome, are not running for less than X per mile. Exactly. Notice the rise in pistol prices. Other than Cheap 9 and High Point, everything is running 800 and up from around 600. Now, there's still some cheap ones out there. But yeah, the cheap ones are getting more expensive. That's for sure. DL Mallory, good morning. Good broker that gets a load from a shipper. That should be a 3-day run, but consigning appointment is 5 days out, adds 2 days of revenue for carrier. But see, that's the key word right there. A good broker. CDN, I can't express this enough. You are a rarity in the broker world. I'm telling you. There are loads on the load board that are 6 days transit for 200, 300-mile loads that are paying like $400 or $500. I'm telling you this. Jeff saying hi to CDN. That's where cost per day comes into play. Finally found primers for a decent price. Factory ammo is up 60 cents a round. I can make them for 25 cents each. Shooting a couple hundred factory rounds costs a couple $100. That is true. CDN Freight Broker says hi to Jeff. Iron sharpens iron. We are supposed to challenge each other, but we can't expect the comfy, painless process. That is true. Mrs. A knows that. Almond Chimera, good morning. Mr. Charles, the more you sit, the higher the wall gets. You will never get home sitting in the dugout. The base hits builds so that home run turns into a grand slam. If you're away from home, keep moving. Do not sit and get depressed sitting in a truck stop that does nothing but hurt your business. Keep the wheels turning and money coming into the business. JF Trucker, good morning. George McElroy, what's up? 10, I'll tell you that guy read that I tell the guy read all the time. Now he sits at home again, sulking and complaining. Well, I guess his destiny is to go broke. Twisted Mudflap says, was watching an economist who says oil will spike to $300 a barrel if the shipping lanes on the ocean get disturbed. If the U.S. stops protecting shipments, Russia is unable to get oil tanker insurance. Now, that's interesting you say that because they're starting to attack. There were some drone attacks on American warships and a commercial ship. And Sage said it in one of his feeds. If they start attack shipping lanes in the ocean, everything I'm talking about goes out the window. It's going to be a struggle for everybody. Keep moving definitely eases a little depression, keeps wheels turning. If the rates are so low, you wouldn't think manufacturers would stock. You would think that manufacturers would stock their warehouses. They are. They did last year. So, St. Wayne will drive me nuts, especially this time of year. Good morning, Shannon. Are you guys hiring? I'm not sure if we are bringing on new people until January. You can Jeff can put the email in there, safety@liketrucking.com, or here, we'll do this. There's the website. So anyone renewed insurance lately? Any rate increases? I don't know. I think we're about to do ours. All my insurance rates went up, property tax went up, everything went up except wages. That is true. That was one of the reasons why I sold my trailer. That thing was costing me $1,000 a year in property taxes alone. That thing was costing me more than my truck on property taxes. So inflation, the hidden tax. Why kill your truck with these rates? Park it and go company till the economy improves. Yeah, I talked about that earlier. Alfalfa waiting on a 10 a.m. unload appointment in Peoria, Illinois. That's a good spot to land, especially on a Monday. James G, what's up? Facts. Come to Michigan. Your voice is smooth like melatonin. Got me 20 more minutes of sleep. Thank you. I mean, you're welcome. Park trucks is definitely more expensive than a rolling truck. Study the places you pick up and deliver for brokered loads. Where does those warehouses fit in the supply chain? Pay attention to full or not full the warehouses are. How many carriers, trailers? That's a great strategy, CDN. So, I was trying to remember where I was picking up. I think it was somewhere in Missouri. I was picking up a load of dog food. And when I went to check in, the warehouse, I have never seen a warehouse so full of dog food. I mean, have you guys been in those warehouses where the empty soda cans and soda and beer cans, and they're stacked way high in the ceiling? It was like that, but with dog food. It was crazy. And I'm like, you know what? I bet you dog food loads aren't going to pay good for a while. And sure enough, they weren't. So, how much? I got 29 for the truck, and I got 20 for the trailer. So, Yeah, I agree with CDN, a unicorn. CDN is a unicorn, yes. There you go. Onboard at liketrucking.com. There's the address. Look, it's tough, but if you sit during a good market, you don't make any money. If you sit during a bad market, you don't make any money. You know, the strategy is the same for both a good and bad market. Keep moving. You know, and look, if your expenses are high, okay, if your expenses are high, let's put the low board up here. Then you probably have anxiety. You should be having anxiety sitting. That's the problem. You know, I had a paid off truck. I can sit as long as I want, right? And that was something I saw at Landstar. That was the people I had surrounded myself with. The people like had paid off trucks, so they thought that they had the golden goose, and they didn't. The truck would break down; they'd have no money to pay for it. But Landstar would go in there and make the repair. They charge you a percentage, and they would ha- help you on the repair. That was the first thing a Landstar mentor told me one time. He goes, "Man, make sure you can make it 90 days, because after that, Landstar will help you with the repair bill." And I did. I never utilized that, but I made it 90 days. I was like, oh, shoo. Instead of running my truck the way it should have been and having the money anyways. But I did have a line of credit. That's the thing. You have a lot of people that aren't running that don't even have a line of credit. And I remember watching a YouTuber who said that he can't run his truck because he can't afford to repair. So that's why he was sitting and parking the truck. Now, that was during the EIDL triple P money. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, if you got the EIDL, triple P, and the unemployment money coming in, well, I guess with unemployment you couldn't run. But wouldn't that was the perfect time to run? And that's what happened in 2020. A lot of people that were able to sit. I I sat for 10 days. And it didn't hurt them because they had this EIDL money. They had the PPP money. And so when the rates, and so they were able to hang on when the rates became really good, and then we had this explosion of new trucks and new authorities. Next thing you know, Kenworth's able to charge you $220,000 for a $160,000 truck. People were able to charge you 90 grand for a $40,000 trailer. And then all at once, the perfect storm happened. And here we are. Now, there's arguments on whether you should be a 100% spot market company or 100% spot market, or, you know, there's all these arguments online all the time, whether it's a viable platform or not. The way I look at it is, if you want to run 100% spot, if you want to be a carrier that runs 100% spot, you have to know the ups and downs. And we've been blessed with extremes. We've been blessed at the highest, and we've been blessed with the lowest. Why is that a blessing? Well, because now you know the worst case scenario and the best case scenario. And so you can plan accordingly. So there you go. That's it. It's as simple as that. Keep moving. If you can't afford to keep moving, you definitely can't afford to not move. And if you have to park your truck for a minute to make those repairs, there's nothing wrong with that. But just know if it sits too long, you might as well get rid of it. If you keep doing the same thing over and over and over and you don't get different results, that's the definition of insanity. And that's what a lot of people are doing right now. You know, there's a story of a driver that was given a chance by having one of their payments, withdrawn for the month on the condition that they moved. They continued to move. They wouldn't sit at truck stops for days on end. That was the deal. Short of running out your clock. And you know what? That person made a lot of money that month. And the minute that the condition was over, they went back to their old ways. I think one of the most frustrating things that I'm going through right now is watching people damage themselves quite a bit. Watching them destroy their families, watching them destroy their livelihoods, watching them destroy their health. That affects me. And while I'm not in the trenches with you guys anymore, if I had to go out and do it tomorrow, I could and I would. And I know what it would take to run a truck. I know what it takes to run a successful business because I know what doesn't work. Because I see it all the time. Because think about this. Let's say that I owned 5 trucks and I had company drivers. Let's say you were a company driver and you refuse, like your dispatcher says, "Hey, I got you a load going to wherever," and you go, "Nah, not feeling it. I want to sit at this truck stop for another day." They're going to be like, okay, clean out your truck." Now, granted, most of us have a truck payment, run the spot market because we don't want to be in that situation. But you have to have some self-discipline to do that for yourself. You know what? If I don't, think about this. Anything that you do every day is what you're going to succeed at. Sorry, a lot of activity going around in my house this morning. If you watch TV every day, you're going to be good at watching TV. If you exercise every day, you're going to get physically fit. If you pray every day, it's going to help your spirituality. If you go for a walk every day, it's going to help your heart. If you spend money every day, you're going to go broke. If you smoke every day, eventually you're going to get sick from it. If you eat bad food every day, you're eventually going to get sick off of it. Something that you do every day is what you get better at. Whether it's good or bad, exercise, food, video games. If you're on the low board every day, looking at markets, you'll get better at it. It's that simple. There's no formula. Sonar can give you all these graphs and charts and tell you where to put your truck, but if you're not willing to go into the places that they tell you that you should go into, then what's the point of it? What good is this map if you refuse to go to Ohio or if you refuse to go to Wisconsin, right? Let's say you live in Nebraska and you have a contract freight to go from Nebraska to Oklahoma City. Well, you're at the mercy of the market going back to Nebraska. And so you have to adjust accordingly to your business. And that's fine. You know, sometimes we have limitations that are beyond our control. And so if Oklahoma market's paying $1.60 a mile that week, then you're making $1.60 to get back to Nebraska. If you don't want to run for $1.60, you deadhead back. And I doubt that shipper's paying you round trip money, right? So you're at the mercy of the market. And then there might be times when you do have to deadhead back because there's literally nothing. So you have to make your adjustments, whether it's cost per mile, cost per day, cost per month, cost per year, cost per hour, doesn't matter. You have a limited scope. So you're at the mercy of the market on your backhauls. And so what do? You use the same strategy you use to get that direct shipper in Nebraska and do the same thing for out of Oklahoma going back to Nebraska. You figure it out, right? And then once you figure it out, it might change. That Nebraska shipper like, oh, we got loads going to New Mexico now. You're like, New Mexico's even harder to get out than Oklahoma in van, right? But you figure it out. Pumpkin season, you figure it out, right? And if you can't figure it out, have someone help you. Get rid of your pride. Get rid of your ego. Take your arrogance and throw it in the trash can. And learn from the people that are succeeding in what you want to do. My name is Nobody Says. I'm still in the trenches telling others which way they should go. Whenever you're feeling overwhelmed, always start by controlling what you can control. Drink more water than anything else, 8 hours sleep, food you eat, work ethic, professional appearance, attitude, numbers. I have too much pride to ask for help. There's no way I would ask my carrier for money to fix my truck. And so knowing that about yourself, Mark, guess what? You're never going to put yourself in that situation if you can help it to where you would have to ask for your carrier to fix your truck, right? Now, if it was your only option, then you would have to swallow some pride, correct? But you've probably established a system where, like, you know what? I need to make sure I got this in the bag because I definitely don't want to be the guy that has to ask for help, right? So you figure it out. Money management is key. That I use that principle every day. Absolutely. Money management, computing time, compounding time. Oh, you're still in the trenches? What are we working on? DIY semi? What's different? I'm so excited. Not having a lot of debt is also key. Look, you wouldn't want to open a business without a line of credit. You got to have a line of revolving credit. If you're a restaurant, you need that to buy your food and your equipment. If you're a bar, you need that to buy your supplies, your alcohol, your glasses and stuff like that, right? Trucking's no different, man. Not a whole lot of people can sit on 40 grand. So you better have some credit to be able to handle repairs. Hold on a second. All right. There's a combination of cash and credit that you need. Cash for the small stuff, credit for the big stuff. Whether your truck's paid for or not, whether you got a warranty or not, you got to have something. I think that warranties and paid off trucks give you a false sense of security. And that's the problem. That's another big issue. For me, it was having a low truck payment. I had a a false sense of security. Having low home expenses will give you a false sense of security. So the way to combat that is just truly do your numbers. I mean, I've got software I can go back and tell you exactly what I made in 2018, in 2019, in 2020. Savings, maintenance, and a line of credit. That's what true businesses do. Whether you're a hot dog vendor, you know, the little hot dog cart on the corner, or a major manufacturer. So it's no, I got it in the bank and credit. That's how you do it, right? You know, I have a lot of these old school guys, dude. It's trucking, man. It ain't that hard, right? And that simplifies it a bit, but it's true. Understanding the market is understanding logistics. The more you understand logistics, that allows you the leverage to go into places like what CDN talks about and figure things out. And the more you know your profession, the more you know your circumstances, the more you know about the cards that are stacked up against you as a small business owner, the quicker you can come to realize that, you know what, is this worth the fight? Or is this, if it's worth fighting for, then you have to figure it out. If you're on the battlefield, you wouldn't just sit behind a tree and hope for the best. You have to keep moving or you will get shot. And it's like that in anything in life. If you sit for too many days, that's what you're going to be good at. Now, that's how I ballooned up to 400 pounds, was I sat too much. This is all from experience. This isn't me like, I know more than you. No, this is me screwing up more than you. And I'm telling you, with every ounce of that I can, that January and February is going to be tough for everyone. And if I'm wrong, I will stand up on the biggest soapbox and say I was wrong. But January, February are going to be extremely rough, more than the normal down cycles of freight. And we have an election year coming up, and it's going to be the most volatile, violent election that we've ever seen. And there are a lot of people that are out to take your money, government included. And you're not going to solve all the world's problems sitting at a truck stop wondering why and when the market's going to come back up. All right. So, with that being said, strength for today, hope for tomorrow. But you got aggression turns to screws, man. You gotta figure it out, because you can't just live off of simple hope. All right. So that being said, I got to get to work. You guys take it easy. Have a great day. We'll see you Wednesday. Peace.